guys, Justin here with Barbell Kings, or from Barbell Kings. Today we're going to be discussing how to build raw strength, just how to get stronger, not necessarily how to get bigger or more muscle mass. First thing we're going to cover is how strength works. How does your body create, a higher efficiency or higher workload to the muscles? Got my handy dandy drawing here. First we have your brain, or your central nervous system, and then we have the muscles down here. This is muscles. This is my wonderful drawing of your brain and then a bicep. The first thing that what happens when you lift a weight, essentially, is the brain sends a signal to the muscles and tries to draw as many muscle fibers as it can. This is called motor. It's called motor unit recruitment. I might have to edit that. I'll probably have to edit that. Motor unit recruitment. This is the number of muscle fibers your central nervous system can pull together at one time. The next thing that happens is rate coding, which is the number of the speed or efficiency that signal can be sent from your central nervous system to the muscle. It's kind of like your explosiveness, how quickly those muscle fibers can activate and fire away. The next thing that's real important to note about strength is that a lot of it, well, I shouldn't say a lot of it, a good portion of it though, is just learning the movement pattern. If your central nervous system doesn't know the movement pattern, it can't operate efficiently. So a big thing to cover is just learning the movement pattern, knowing, doing a deadlift 1,000 times versus doing a deadlift, if you've never done a deadlift before, obviously you're not going to be very strong at it. Your body has to learn the movement pattern, and then you'll develop an efficiency that way as well. So I guess the next question is, how do we develop these two things? How do we develop the brain to be able to activate more muscle fibers, and then how do we also stress the nervous system in a way that it creates a stress that will then induce a faster rate coding, or a way for the muscles to work more efficiently? In that regard, well, here, let me erase this. I might have to pause. In that regard, we'll go over reps, sets, your rest, and then different possible training techniques to induce that kind of stress. So obviously, we understand the human body works in a way of adapting to stress. So if you put a certain stressor on the body, it'll adapt, and that's kind of how muscle growth works. That's also in the same way that we have to find that specific stressor to work strength specifically, not muscle growth. Okay, and we're back. I had to change my drawing board a little bit. So first things first, how many reps should I be doing? How many sets should I be doing? How much rest in between sets should I be getting? And what kind of force output am I looking at in order to build the most strength? I'm actually going to start down here, and then we'll go back up to the top, because your force output is really important. The reason you're the main way that you're able to that stressor that I was talking about to put on your central nervous system to induce a more efficient way of training, or a more efficient muscle activation, is training at a high force output. So your force output is let's say that's like a percentage. I don't have to write this down, I can just tell you. It's like a percentage of your 1 rep max. So let's say you can do a bench press for a set, or whatever weight, for 8 reps. You can't do any more than 8 reps. If I put a gun to your head, there's no way you can do a 9th rep. You're absolutely exhausted at that point. If you were to take somewhere in the range of like 3 to 4 reps of that, so it was like half of that, that'd probably be around your 70-75% range. The important thing here to note is that you can't build strength at a low force output. So if you do, say let's go up to the reps. Let's say you go, oh, Justin, I did 3 reps, so I was in the strength zone, but I was only doing 40% of my 1 rep max. You're not going to get there. I did 3 reps at 50% of my 1 rep max. You're not going to get there. You're not inducing enough stress on the central nervous system. What it really comes down to is how that system gets more efficient when it's being pushed. So when you're working at, I always recommend 75%. Some people go as high as 85%. Excuse me. I wouldn't go over 85%. I know there's a lot of powerlifters that will do like 90% of their 1 rep max for sets of 1. Certainly, if that works for you, by all means. I'll explain to you why I don't follow that kind of method, but nonetheless, so your force output is important. That percentage of your 1 rep max. You're going to want to be aiming, I'll write it down just so we're all clear, 70 to 85% of your 1 rep max. Honestly, 75% is a good place to be. Then, so how many reps do I do? Once I've found my force output and where I'm at, what weight wise, where I need to be at, how many reps should I be doing? 1 to 5 reps is your your golden area for building strength over a hypertrophy. The reason for this is because of that higher percentage. You're able, you shouldn't be able to do 25 reps at 85% of your max. Obviously, then your force output's not correct. You want your central nervous system to be you want to put that stress on your central nervous system to try and draw as many muscle fibers and activate as explosively as possible. That's another important thing I should state here is when you're doing these reps, your intensity is full intensity. You want to be hitting the reps as explosively as possible. You really want to be pushing that central nervous system with the stress that you want and being more efficient. How many sets do I do? Once you've found this range, how many sets do I do? I wrote this down there. 3x5 and 5x5 programs are great. I've used them myself. They're especially great beginner programs. It's really easy to remember. Just do 5 sets at 5 reps. You know what I mean? And then especially if you know your force output, you're able to put a good percentage on these. They're great. However, there's no magical number of sets, especially with strength training. A lot of times I'll do a lot more sets. I'll do like 10 to 20 sets, like somewhere around 15 sets. The reason for this, when I was talking about just learning the movement patterns, specialized like training, like if you were a power lifter and you're doing the bench, the dead, and the squat a lot, you're like I said, learning that movement pattern. So if you do a bunch of sets, that's more times, that's more reps you're getting in learning that movement pattern. The next important step here is rest. I'll write it down. How much rest should you be getting between sets? I aim for 3 to 5 minutes when training strength between sets. The reason for this is you do not want your form to break down. If your form breaks down, you're not training. You're hurting yourself really, because you could potentially injure yourself, but B, you're not learning the movement pattern correctly. You're trying to adapt with muscle fatigue to push through, and that's not what you want to do with strength. You want you're already working a really high force output, so you want enough time for not only your muscles to recover, but your central nervous system recover, so you can go into the next set with 100% intensity. If you're coming into the next set and you're still tired from the previous set, your form's not going to be there, and you're going to be grinding through the reps. You're not going to be doing the reps correctly. You're not going to be explosive through the reps. That's why I aim for that 3 to 5 minute range. A lot of times they'll say with 1 rep maxes, like a 1 rep max will take 5 to 7 seconds, I think, to pull off, and that's full muscle contraction. You're absolutely giving it your everything you got to get through that 1 rep. I think that's a good pause point. I'll come back and we'll talk about this, and then maybe go over a little bit, and then work on some techniques and training programs that offer offer you a good way to go about this. All right, we're back again. So we know that you need, excuse me, we know that you need to learn the movement pattern. We know that building strength requires a large force output, and I guess so. How do we put the things that we've learned together in a way that we can implement this into our training to get the most strength? Two techniques I'm going to go over with you. Greasing the groove. This is a Russian thing. Actually, a lot of the what I was talking about earlier comes from Russian weightlifting programs. I won't go over any of the other ones, but that's from what I've learned and applied. Their systems and concepts seems to carry over well. Greasing the groove is just that same theory that I was talking about earlier about doing a lot of reps at doing low reps but high sets, and giving yourself a lot of rest in between. Greasing the groove is that 75%, 3-4 reps, probably about 3-4 reps, and then lots of rest in between, and then you're learning the movement pattern. You're stressing your central nervous system at a high force output, and you're getting that explosiveness that you need through each rep to build your strength tolerance. The next technique I'm going to go over with you is called overloading, and this is a fun one I learned. In one of my earlier videos, I talked about how you're stronger in the eccentric portion of the movement, on the bench would be the lowering of the bench, or not not the the actual lift itself, but the other end of the lift, the lowering of the weight. Uh, what's cool about this technique, you'll need spotters, but you'll work at like 130% of your 1 rep max, so a weight that you cannot do by yourself. But so I'll do a demonstration here. So say we're talking about the squat, and you got more than you can do on your back, and you'll lower with it, and then you'll have spotters help you raise with it. What's cool about this is there's been quite a few studies on it, and they've shown like a 10 to 30% increase in strength over like doing this over like once every like 4 weeks or something on top of your regular training program. But there's two important factors. I should add this. A, you need spotters. B, you're at a high risk of injury, because what happens is like finish writing. What happens is the longer. So let's say when you're doing a bench and you get down, you come back up and you're stuck. You hit that point where, oh shit, I can't push anymore, and the weight's not moving. The longer you're stuck in at that spot with 100% force output and you're not moving, your risk for injury just starts exponentially. Unfortunately, my camera died there, but what happens is your risk for injury goes up because your tendons and your ligaments and your muscle fibers are all under that extreme contraction for a long amount of time, and they're not moving, they're not progressing. So the risk of injury. I guess the next thing, I had talked a whole bunch and then my phone died. Those two techniques, implementing those kind of ideas into your strength training. So in conclusion, I'll just go over this. We want low reps, high number of sets, and lots of rest. I cover why we want to do those sorts of things, and we want to do these things to maximize that stress on our central nervous system and increase our efficiency. As I talked about before, that the motor unit recruitment is drawing more muscle fibers, your central nervous system's ability to draw more muscle fibers. For a lot of people, just adding muscle mass will give their central nervous system more muscle fibers to draw upon, so they become stronger. I mean, bodybuilders are not weak people. They've got a lot of muscle fibers to draw from. They're not powerlifters or Olympic weightlifters for that, in that regard. Like if you look at Olympic weightlifters, those crazy like 150-pound guys that are throwing like 300 or 400 pounds above their head, and with Olympic clean and jerks. Obviously they've trained that movement pattern specifically a whole lot, so it's a lot of specialized training. But they've also trained their central nervous system to be very efficient at that movement. So in that regard, that's two ways that you want to look at how this whole system ties in together. I've been lifting for like 10 years now, well, at least 10 years, seriously lifting anyway. At least making checking programs, learning, reading books, and researching, and it's a continual process, and you'll learn, especially with getting the movement patterns down. There's a lot of movement patterns, and doing a lot of reps will help you get to that point where you want to be, and implementing these training ideas and concepts to help you better understand how your body works. All right, I think that's it for today, guys. Have fun, enjoy your quarantine.